Hi, Sean. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I thought you were so incredible in Rosalind. I
Oh, thank
especially
you.
loved your chemistry with Caitlin Dever, and you look like you were having so much fun making this movie. But before I get too ahead of myself, tell everyone what Rosalind's about and a little about your character, Dario.
We did have a lot of fun making that movie. As you can hear, I've got a sore throat. We've been laughing for the last 5 days straight.
Oh,
Um, the movie is sorry. The movie is told. I suppose, a story about Romeo and Juliet, or it's Romeo and Juliet adjacent, where there's a character in the play called Rosalind, who's Juliet's cousin, and we're telling Romeo and Juliet from her perspective, where she's actually been dating Romeo before Juliet ever meets him, and by a series of circumstances, things go wrong, and Juliet enters Romeo's life, and Rosalind starts to scheme into ways of getting her boyfriend back.
yes. So tell me about your experience filming it.
It was wonderful. I can't tell you how nice it's been seeing everyone since we came back. We had such a good time together. Everyone is really good in the movie. It's an amazing thing,
Yeah.
actually, that everyone in this cast is wonderful, myself excluded. But everyone is brilliant and very, very kind and very, very generous, and just sort of, it's the dream job. It's one of those movies that you just kind of, we're going to spend the summer in Italy working
Yeah.
for Dan Cohen and everyone at 21 Laps, and some of the most wonderful producers, and 20th Century and Hulu and Disney, and just really lovely. And then to be there with everyone and to be doing this movie that's incredibly witty and incredibly sarcastic and incredibly silly at the same time.
Yeah.
There's some really lovely, heartfelt, romantic moments that I suppose me and Rosalind get to engage in, and then there's this sort of this farcical nature that the medieval times should probably have. A
Yeah.
story about medieval times should probably have, because the medieval times were horrific and
Mm.
farcical. When you look back and read about them, you think, gosh, what a horrible world to live in. So we get to really make a mockery of it, which is quite fun.
Okay, so tell me about the last 5 days and reuniting with everyone.
Well, we have been doing a lot of interviews, as you can imagine,
Right.
and the press junket was great. We got to see everyone, not everyone, sadly, but Kyle Allen wasn't there, couldn't make it, and
Mm.
Bradley Whitford, who were two big, big parts of the movie, and that was a big loss, because I missed them very much and I didn't get to see them. So,
Yeah.
but we got together in the press junkets, the premiere. That was something, the premiere. It's never the most enjoyable prospect, having to watch yourself or critique yourself. Luckily, by this point, we're kind of prepared for that. But even after 12 years, that hasn't left. I'm amazed. And I know that Brad or Minnie or Chris McDonald would all turn around and say, you know what, after 20 years, after 30 years, that feeling doesn't leave. But what was great was that with a comedy, you can get that instant response. And thanks to Caitlin and everyone on the movie, we got a lot of very big laughs. Spencer Stevenson and Nico, so funny in the movie. So it was great
Yes.
to hear everyone laugh and share in all those moments that at the time we found to be good. But in the process of making a movie, you might not see if it's landing or not until all the pieces fall together. And so it was really lovely to hear that in a room.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me about watching the movie. What were some of your favorite moments as a viewer that you were surprised by or that you're really like happy about how they turned out?
I wasn't surprised by any of the cast being as good as they were, to be
Oh.
honest. I kind of knew just by watching them, being around them, or working with them. But actually, even just being around them, because Carl and I don't get to cross paths much, and I won't give away much about who Dario is, because I think it's important to not do that. But
Mm-hmm.
or at least we felt that way so far running up in the promo, that we maybe don't give away too much of that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I spent a lot of time with Kyle and outside of the shot. So it was really great to see what I knew he would be like on as Romeo, with that amazing performance that's so funny. It was really great.
Yes.
I don't mean to condescend in any way, shape, or form. I think he's an absolute star. Spencer had always referenced that he'd not done a project of this size before, and
Right.
it did not feel or look like that at all. He is so good in the movie, and he's electric,
Yes.
and it actually makes me really emotional how happy I am for him, because he wouldn't always mention that, but he did mention that, and I just thought to myself, gosh, like, I don't think you need to worry about this being one of the earlier jobs. He blew the house down into have, he didn't say anything about it, but to have everyone appreciate him was amazing. Really great.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned Kyle. I think I don't want to give anything away, but the end credits scene with Kyle and Isabella
Oh
is
my
just
word, that scene with Kyle, that scene with Kyle and Isabella at the end is great. It kind of, it doesn't, I can't give it away.
right.
It puts a wonderful thing in the movie though, doesn't it? To button the movie. To button the movie the way that it does is just so, so great. And I think no one other than Kyle and Isabel could have done it the way that they did. I think they're both so, so good in their roles. And you know, I think Dario maybe has to be a bit more serious. And I would talk to Kyle, and Kyle's like, "Oh, I'm just here to prance around. I'm just gonna," you know, you can even see it in the costumes. You know, Dario's a soldier, and so it's more rustic, and there's a lot more armor involved and sort of earth tones. And then Kyle gets to frolic around in tights and velvet and foofy hats, and you know, so we really got to play the opposite sides of that. And he just, I mean, he could do both well, but he did that. It's such a funny scene. There's so many funny scenes.
Yes.
Which thankfully there are, because it's a comedy, so I don't know why I'm saying that out loud. But there really are. There really are.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the costumes because they speak so much about each character.
They are Mitchell Travers, both of our wolves, Mitchell Travers and Wolf, were incredible on this movie. And as is always the case, I think they'd be very modest in not mentioning this. There's never enough time, and somehow Mitch Travers and his team, even with a slightly more limited time than one would like for medieval costumes, made all of those costumes and found all of those other pieces and built all of those characters perfectly. I had an incredible first day with him, and it doesn't always, admittedly, it doesn't always happen, where you come in and there's a lot of stuff going on, and costume have a lot of things to do, and you have opinions or not about your character and where maybe things would land better, or what you're even comfortable in, because this at the end of the day is what you have to carry with you or what your character does. And I just had a blitz of a day or a couple of days with Mitch where everything, I mean, even the big even the things that didn't work, we agreed wholeheartedly on. We laughed so much about some things that just didn't land that we could make a mockery of myself wearing. And we landed on some things that really felt right. It was a privilege working with him, and he's and his team entirely are being rewarded for all of their hard work, aren't they? This year they've had an incredible amount of nominations and award wins, so it was great to have them there.
Yeah. So when I spoke to you for Little Voice, you said that filming on Governor's Island, it felt like an Avengers Assemble kind of moment because everyone got together and it felt lovely and special. So there's a scene towards the end of this movie where everyone gets together. I don't want to say what happens. Did it feel like that? Did it feel like it just very special and once in a lifetime moment?
It took 2 days. It took 2 days because we just laughed for so long. It was the whole group back together in a very big, beautiful church. And I mean, everyone just riffed. You know, we knew exactly what we had to do. By this point, we'd really been flowing through things. And I mean, we hit the ground running from the start. Karen Main is an amazing director and a wonderful person. So it was very obvious from the get-go that we were going to be just fine doing anything. But by that point, we had Minnie there with us, and Chris and Brad, and the whole gang, other than those that physically can't be there in the story, and that was very few people. That was an Avengers and all of their families and friends assemble moment. That was Avengers squared. It was great. That's one of the, I would say, one of the worst days for me in corpsing on camera. Caitlin and I really, there's a lot of footage that was not usable because Caitlin and I just kept on cracking each other up with Chris McDonald and everyone being there. Luckily we weren't in shot, but it was just, my limbs hurt by the end of that day.
So tell me about some of your favorite memories from set in general.
I mean, there were so many. I really loved, this is entirely selfish, but my character is in the Genoese Navy, and I really loved the days that we spent by the lake on my dock. The weather was beautiful, the crew were wonderful, and we were really a very, very, very tight-knit group, very meshed group. We went out with all of our Italian and crew a lot, and we would always have dinners, and we would always spend lunches together. And so it was really nice just being out there together in such a beautiful place. And it was great for me because that is where Dario is at his most comfortable. And
Mm.
so it really felt right for me to be there. And even off camera and talking about things technically, or even just being Sean, it felt right that I was there. I felt rooted when I was there. Um, I spent a lot of time introspectively thinking and breaking things down when I was there. I asked to be there for longer. I just, it was really nice doing that. And then, of course, just being in Italy and going to Tuscany, and we got together and did wine tasting, and we went. I mean, Kyle and I would do the tours, historical tours of the Colosseum and all the other things
Wow.
that the Eternal City Rome has to offer. Loads of fun memories.
Wow.
Loads of fun memories. I came back full of memories, and actually came back with a lot more information about the world than I had before, which is always nice.
So tell me about
Mm.
collaborating more with Karen. She's such an exceptional director.
Yeah, but just like a nightmare person, just difficult in every way.
No.
Uh, I know. I am joking. I have to. We spoke after we saw the movie for the first time, and we said some very personal things to each other about how much it mattered to us that we were there, and how much it mattered to me that I was involved in this, and how lovely it was that she was at the helm. But to
Yeah.
do something of that scale, and the movie it feels like a small movie because it's a sweet, soulful story about a group of people, but it's also huge. The castles
Yeah.
are massive, the hedge mazes go on for miles, the sets are large, and the costumes have so much intricate detail to them. There's a lot of depth in all of it.
Yeah.
And to have all of that with the wonderful composers and their orchestra playing all their music, again, that's huge. It's way larger than one would have thought. And to add to that, putting all of those things, having all of those things in the editing in mind, whilst corralling this herd of actor cats that are slinking around everywhere being ridiculous, and making this movie with all of these things in play, to be able to do all of that whilst being so genuinely generous and compassionate and patient and empathetic to actors on set in their moments in that space was outrageous. It's completely outrageous that she is capable of doing that. Because, I mean, we would stress about one thing. She has a million things to worry about. Karen had a million things to worry about, 1,000 things to consider. And at the same time, at no point devalued or took away or influenced in any way what your voice might be about it, what your feelings are about it, even if it takes up time. It was just really special. And so I hope that Karen is proven to be as brilliant as she is by this movie and everything she does afterwards, because she's wonderful to work with and clearly incredibly gifted.
Mm. And so you've had many admirers of your work over the years, from The Gifted, Incorporated, all of your work, your voice work, for example, as well. So have been some fan reactions that really stayed with you.
There have been some, yeah, there have been some. This industry is really, really wild. It's full of some of the most brilliant people, and it allows you to meet so many brilliant people and so many kind fans that have been more influential than people will admit along the way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes the same for the critics. And it's a very personal thing that we do. But I haven't found it to always be on the receiving end of positivity, and that's the way that the world works, I suppose. But it's been a real privilege to get to know people, and I find it hard talking about, I find it always quite difficult to discuss whether anything that we do impacts lives, and it has a message that might purport some things that really resonate with people. As long as we can feel things in the right way, and tell a story that allows someone to connect, that's all that matters. I never know about there's a lot of talk about, like, oh, you've impacted. I always find it really hard to discuss impacting. As long as I entertained you, as long as I moved you, maybe at some point I had just did the story justice and the people around me justice, and that's great. And over the years, with many mistakes, I've also been lucky to work with some great people in having some nice moments, and this movie is one of them, and The Gifted and Incorporated, all very special to me. So it's been nice, and I think sometimes people forget when they type online that that people read it and that it really hurts. And at the same that although you seem anonymous, you have a very loud voice. And it's the same the other way around. When you write kind things, it does get noted and it means a lot. So yeah, it's an up and down thing, but I've been very lucky with all the kindness that people have given me, and the unkindness is all just information too.
Yeah, yeah. So finally, what have you seen recently that have really moved you and impacted you?
I have to say Blackbird on Apple.
Mm,
There's a Taron Egerton show, but Paul Waterhouse, Taron does fine, brilliant. I mean, fine in an exceptional way, not fine like it's
right.
fine. Does, does some fine work. No, he does some really excellent work in that show, and that trajectory that he found, that journey he goes on is brilliant. But Paul Waterhouse is
Oh yeah.
out of this world. I haven't seen, and it's just mortifying and so compelling at the same time. I just started The Bear, which is
Oh yeah.
currently brilliant, and I know will continue to be really good. So I'm really enjoying those. Um, who I mean, and in the cinema, who couldn't say that Top Gun was just the best joy of the year? To
Yes.
go back to that, yeah, I love how it subverts what we know action movies to be, and it can look at itself for what it is and be silly and own it and actually be completely heart wrenching too, and like emotional. I was sucked in completely the entire way. It was a real blockbuster, and it's nice to know that they still exist. Not that they haven't been proven, but in a different medium than the other ones we're used to. That are brilliant in their own right, but very dominant IPs. It's nice to have other ones come up. So it's that is what I have seen lately. New Game of Thrones. I didn't see it last night, so I might have to check it out.
Oh, a lot. Yeah,
Oh
I don't want to
no!
say. I don't want to
Oh no!
say.
Am I
You need to catch
gonna?
up, though. I'll say that. You
Yeah,
need to catch
I
up.
will brace myself. Yeah.
Set aside an hour and 8 minutes, and yeah.
Oh wow! Here we go. Okay, I'll strap in. I'll do that tonight.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the art that you bring into the world. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time, Sean. Have a lovely
The pleasure
day.
is all
Thank
mine.
you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you talking to me.